Primary Election Day is Tuesday, June 4th. Now is the time to make a plan. Whether you plan to vote absentee by mail, in person at your county auditor's office before Election Day, or at your polling place on June 4th, it's important you take steps now to make your plan at voterready.iowa.gov. Remember, Election Day is Tuesday, June 4th. Find more info at voterready.iowa.gov. This message is presented by the Iowa Secretary of State.
Hello and welcome to IMP's WWE Adventures podcast on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. You can help the network out by leaving us a 5-star review. You can also give a donation directly through Red Circle and become one of the amazing community by joining the Social Suplex Discord. Link is in the description. Listen to the other top-notch shows here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network, One Nation Radio, Keeping It Strong Style, All Things Elite, Wrestling Outlook Things, Trish and Sarah, Tunnel Talk, and the AEW Match Guide making its big return. My name is Matt Maher, aka Imp, and this is your quick look back at the WWE week that was. 30 minutes, and he's hot, he's spicy, he tastes great. It's Christopher Daniels is dead. He's dead. He's gone. They fired him. They got rid of him. No. Sad times. AEW was good this week. Anyway, let's talk about Smackdown and Monday Night Raw with the King and Queens of the Rings pretty much being the only things to talk about from both shows. So I've not really got a lot to say for either of the shows particularly. So this might be a particularly quick week, which over the past few weeks, editing me, I'm going to love this. I'm going to absolutely love this. just having a lovely time before the final weekend of the Premier League season. So I can all get nice and all cosy and all set up for the Forest game on the final day, instead of having to spend way more time at properly cutting down and editing. Like the show last week, I think came out at like 35 minutes or so. I recorded for like 80. I think I cut out a lot last week, and I was really happy with how it sounded in the end. I went on about Backlash for like 45. I did a full episode on just Backlash, and then I saw the time was like 45 minutes. Like, oh God, I've got to talk about Raw now. It's like, yeah, last week's show got edited. That was proper editing. So anyway, hopefully it's making it nice and easy for future me. Let's talk over to Smackers for more King and Queen of the Ring.
Continuing to apply the pressure. Oh, KO!
Just quickly before we get into the King and Queen of the Ring stuff, Smackdown did kick off with Audi, which has been determined to be US champion Logan Paul. It's irritating that I like this. It's got to that point now where I was like, Logan Paul does get this wrestling thing though. He really does get it. And his character is great. And he's really good at performing this said character. Paul directly framing himself as the fuel for the WWE rocket ship. A heel clearly in his own world, as he claims his moments were always the most talked about from WWE's biggest shows. Which really works as something I genuinely believe his character thinks is true. Cody doesn't have to say anything about his white-hot title win, because we all know people weren't talking about Logan Paul because they were talking about Cody Rhodes. Hey, maybe on certain social media metrics, where they're obviously going to gravitate to the known big social media names, but in the wrestling circle. Anyway, so let's jump into the Queens and King of the Ring stuff. Start with the Queen of the Ring, Naomi versus Nia Jax. The Big Blue brand baddie having her first match on said Blue Smackers. A really impressive spot that did the rounds on social media. Naomi going for the head scissors, reversal of a powerbomb off of Brett's rope, whilst right at the same time trying to avoid a wardrobe malfunction and absolutely nailing taking care of both. Like, does it just seem impressive because I'm a man? The simple sight of multitasking at that level just bewildering. But how? How is that possible? Nia Jax winning in the end, a favourite for the tournament, with her the obvious bigger heel choice for Bayley. We also had Piper Niven versus Jade Cargill, which was just like a wee little showcase for Jade. Piper getting in a tad of offence, Chelsea Green doing her best, but this was all building to the big jaded pop as the crowd's impressed she can lift Niven so easily, which is building up because we've just seen Nia Jax win. Jade Cargill versus Nia Jax set for next week. Can Jade also hit Jaded on the even bigger hoss in Nia Jax? And speaking of Jade Cargill, Bianca Belair, her tag team partner, faced Candice LeRae. Indy Hartwell, a much more effective ringside interferer than Green was in Cargill's match. Bianca with a weak point after a cheeky knee chop. Sell that knee for Rosie. Belair limping as she stops a lionsault and carries LeRae to the centre of the ring for the KOD win. She also advances, but Tiffany Stratton for some reason put out a video of her forearming Bianca Belair off the apron. And on the video, as she's forearming Bianca Belair, she says the phrase "black bitch." Like, I'm sorry, what? Did you just tweet that about your fellow co-worker? Like, Jesus Christ. Like, when it comes to WWE, I don't have massive trust that they take this sort of thing seriously. I've seen too many examples of it in the past. I'm not going too far back. It's not that long ago with Apollo Crews. Like, they don't really... They've got a history of not listening to black voices. So when something like this happens, I don't trust... They've not exactly got a great track record of this sort of thing. So as of now, Belair does have an opponent in Tiffany Stratton. My massive assumption is match will take place. From WWE's end, it will be like nothing ever happened. Match will take place, blah-de-blah-de-blah, whatever. And obviously, this is probably worth talking about quite a fair bit. This is the type of thing where it's like, no, this has to be addressed. Like, you can't just put something out like that and just then move on and pretend it didn't happen. It's like, no, like, something like needs to be, this needs to be addressed in some manner. This is quite a bad step. So watch this space. King of the Ring. Let's jump over to those guys. Carmelo Hayes versus Baron Corbin. Bobby Lashley's injured as we see a first round switcheroo. These tournaments aren't cursed. Your face is cursed. That's fine. Everything's fine. What are we talking about? What was I just talking about with the previous match? No, there's no curse or anything on this tournament of just things that have to be changed and switched around us all the time. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Tiffany Stratton didn't do anything. Corbin, a base for Carmelo to shine. The odd sight of the crowd rallying behind Baron as we see the man actually allowed to show he can wrestle a little bit more. Running codebreaker, charging knee, and nothing but net misses in the end. Will he ever hit it? He's not hit nothing but net yet. Mello flipping out of the end of days into a sudden package win because they are playing up as the villain. So him missing his big moves works alright because he can get the sneaky bad guy win. That means yes, Baron Corbin was the babyface. And you've not watched Baron Corbin in NXT. He's just come in, been like, wait, did Baron Corbin return to SmackDown as a babyface? Why would you put Baron Corbin as a babyface? Like, no, trust me. This level where he's losing to Carmelo Hayes in the first opening match and he's that babyface guy, he hit a nice Death Valley driver. Good for him. That is an absolutely perfect usage of Baron Corbin. Undercard, like undercard almost uses as an enhancement talent that can properly, like, you can give them a bit more of a fight or whatever. Like, yeah, that's the absolutely perfect role for Baron Corbin. Main eventing against Roman Reigns. The worst usage of Baron Corbin. Just absolutely not. This, perfect. This is fine. I've got nothing against Baron Corbin being on my television. I've got everything against with Baron Corbin being the main event featured heel attraction. It's just absolutely not. Absolutely not. Angelo Dawkins versus Tama Tonga. Tama Tonga gets his Death Rebel theme. There is plenty realer than... Like, a lot of the commentary talking about the Gorillas not being signed by WWE before because they couldn't be trusted to act in a responsible, respectable, corporate manner. That, yes, WWE, the respectful, acting corporate entity with no questions of trust or serious lawsuits or anything. They act so responsibly as a company. Ford flipping off the apron to fly us into a flash finish after Dawkins uses the distraction to slam Tonga on down for a near fall. Tama winning with a flatliner, as I suddenly remember he can't use the Gunther in WWE, so let's just go to the most bland finisher that seemingly way too many wrestlers are going to. Is it the flatliner where where you don't lift the opponent up, but you jump up and fall onto your back, where you are essentially jumping up to take a rock bottom, but they're sounding like they've hit their face into the mat, compared to Damien Priest's where he'd lift his opponent up and then fall back down. It's like to be fair, like, this is better than that, but it's still kind of shit. It's not the most impactful finish to a match. The main event, Randy Orton versus AJ Styles. Perfectly fine telly main event. Nothing really that crazy. These two still work relatively well together. Like, when it gets to the final stages of their matches, they've got the kind of moves that work really well together in terms of countering each other and like just stopping. And one of them could hit their move out of nowhere. It's not just Randy, so they gel really well in that kind of aspect. And we've seen it play out quite a few times. So they've got their past matches to work on, like the phenomenal forearm, stutter, caught into the RKO kind of thing, or AJ Styles then reading it. Like, there's a lot of history to play off with these matches. Randy still over as hell. Nice to see AJ kicking at a higher gear than we've seen him for since pre-COVID, really? Like, do I count AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan? Because I know that at the time those matches were highly praised, but how good were they really? Like, I'm thinking like AJ Styles, the last time would be, in my head it's 2017, and like properly was enjoying AJ Styles in-ring work. Is it that? Surely 2018 had something. Am I just forgetting 2018? 2017 was when he was doing the work with Shinsuke, and that was when he won the title off Jinder as well. Oh, and his work was all right. He was just booked badly. But that's the whole Kevin Owens thing, and they didn't really gel either. It's like, you know what? Maybe it's 2016. Maybe when I think about it. Well, because it's 2017, that's the John Cena stuff. Building up to WrestleMania, AJ's like in a huge peak kind of moment. Anyway, that was Randy last time anyway. In this match here though, Randy Pandy hurt his knee, which works nice and neatly for AJ's calf crusher, hobbling about after hitting his offense. Didn't stop him from going for things like superplexes though, the crazy mind of a wrestler. Quick flow for the final minute, Drape DDT not enough to set up the RKO, AJ nailing the phenomenal forearm, only for Pandy to get his hand on the ropes. No fear, RKO out of nowhere in the end for the win. Orton versus Mello next week. Do you do going for nothing but net, counted into an RKO? Don't know how you do that. I mean, you have to do the leg drop position mid-air and then go flat for it. Unless he just kind of, like he's falling sideways like a toddler going to sleep. Then that's how he kind of leans and that's how he takes the RKO. There's no way to put it with it. But that was Smackdown. That's kind of what I meant by there's just not really a lot to talk about there. Like, this is an episode where my tangents are staying in. But yeah, King and the Queen of the Rings just advancing. That was the show. I do like that they are receiving all of this attention. It just means, like, for this review, I've not really got a lot to say. Because, like, yeah, they went forward with the matches. I massively prefer this to whatever the hell the Vince era. Well, Vince did, to be fair, it always felt like with Vince that he didn't really care, and then he brought it back because it had some brand recognition and could be used for a Saudi show to make them seem more important than they actually were. They had the storyline for Xavier Woods, but it was never going anywhere. It wasn't, let's use the King of the Ring to elevate someone. It was more, like, he wants this, and we can give him the King of the Ring gimmick, but like that gimmick isn't then set to go anywhere. So compared to this, which this is what I like. My favourite version of the King of the Ring was when the winner of the King of the Ring then got to main event WrestleMania. I think that's the one Brock Lesnar won where he went to face The Rock. And I personally think that's an absolutely perfect usage of the King of the Ring, where the winner doesn't just become the King of the Ring and adds prestige or whatever to it, like Gunther has been saying that he wants to do it with. But also, you get something for winning. Like, you get a title shot at SummerSlam. Something like that. I do really, really like that. That said, I don't know if I want to watch Priest versus Gunther. Like, that's my main thing with Priest at the moment is he doesn't feel anywhere near as over as the guys he's facing. Like, he feels below every one of these people. And so it's a Vince era title reign where you're giving the title to somebody with the theory of, well, the title elevates the person. You know, but no, the person elevates the title. Just look at what Gunther did with the IC belt. Damian Priest doesn't feel like the champion. He feels like the guy holding the belt in terms of like show structure and stuff, but he doesn't feel like a champion. The belt doesn't feel important whilst it's on him. And I think the most telling thing about that is just that all of his opponents are over. He doesn't feel like he's quite there. Technically, it's a Solo Sikoa thing, where the Solo Sikoa problem is that his act would feel so incredibly over if they'd just given like an ounce of momentum to him, and they'd followed up on the John Cena stuff. Like, before all of this, before going into WrestleMania, give him wins, he's feeding something. So, like, you want to see him take this prominent spot rather than him kind of doing it. Damian Priest, it was the same thing, where it kind of felt like they didn't give you that want of momentum to want to see him to cash in. He just had it, and it was just kind of bubbling or whatever. Then he didn't gain momentum to help elevate him with it. They didn't do a Dolph Ziggler, where he's got the belt, and you don't just want to see the cash in, you want to see the guy elevated because you think he's ready to enter that main event scene. Like, no. There's none of that. There's none of that there. Anyway, let's jump on over to the red one. It's time for Monday Night War with, more corn! It's King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring. Oh, who could have seen that coming?
So back to his feet.
Primary Election Day is Tuesday, June 4th. Now is the time to make a plan. Whether you plan to vote absentee by mail, in person at your county auditor's office before Election Day, or at your polling place on June 4th, It's important you take steps now to make your plan at voterready.iowa.gov. Remember, Election Day is Tuesday, June 4th. Find more info at voterready.iowa.gov. This message is presented by the Iowa Secretary of State.
It's there! Jey going up top! For the Uso splash! Cover for the win! Got it!
The Red Show opening following Drew through backstage out into the arena, taking the walking you into arena opening structure a step further. I really like them kind of linking the two production ideas that they've had through these shows together for this. I'm not saying do it every week, but it worked really well for here, especially as Drew's been a big modest drop. Lolak Cole saying that McAfee used his show to let Drew have a platform to spew his propaganda because Pat has never done that before. They look too deeply into that comment from Michael Cole, like, yep, want to talk about that, Pat? Like having a certain former owner of the company on as a guest to try and humanise him. Do you want to talk about that episode of your show? Like, that's never happened before, has it? Nah. Don't read into it. Also, just a reminder that WWE filed the same as Vince McMahon to take the Janelle Grant case to arbitration this week. They obviously sided against the victim. In this segment, Drew still fixated on Punk, but we get to see him also direct his anger at Priest. A great core part of McIntyre's character is that he blames everyone but himself. So getting to see him blame some new others keeps building that so nicely. Priest out to answer Drew's calling, like the others just flat out telling the Scot he needs to start looking inward to tackle his issues, then accepting the challenge like a babyface champion. Like honestly, just nice to see a heel champion not be booked cowardly. His one title match so far was just your standard heel faction interferencing though, so I'm not getting too excited. It's like, yes, 2-star Jey Uso strikes again. McIntyre could be a different story. However, if they are still again going to book Damien Priest to win in the same manner, yeah, I'm not calling him Jinder. The problem is that as a fan base, as a viewer, we have just seen this match structure so often with the Roman Reigns match that it felt like with the Cody Rhodes match was like a breaking through of, okay, that kind of match stranglehold that is now been smashed through, like in like a symbolisation of it being a new era. It's also like that kind of match kind of dies away a little bit. But instead we just got Damien Priest doing that match, so we've just swapped it over to the other champion. So it's like it's not been smashed through into this brand new era, rather than that kind of match has just been moved to a different spot on the card. So it's not quite the same effect. Aside from that, we have also got the Raw Queen of the Ring and the Raw King of the Ring matches. Io Sky versus Shayna Baszler. Io up posing on the ropes for her entrance when a sneaky Shayna snaps her into an ad break. There's our, but they're both baddies, which one do we cheer for? There's that fixed. I was like, oh, okay, we cheer for Io. During the match, Shayna lifts the ring apron to bash Sky's arm into the metal ring structure. The fans, of course, then chanted, "We want tables." Because, of course, what else are they going to chant? They saw the ring apron lifted up. At that point, you're not allowed to do any other spot. There's only one possible thing we want you to do now. Get the tables. Part of me thinks there's a certain list of chants, because they are just so inherently WWE Pavlovian chants, which were created in that era where the product wasn't that great and the fans would just create chants and things to entertain themselves. And nowadays they've just become the chants that you do because that's what you do. And if we were to ever ask them, well, why do you chant that when things was, I was like, well, because that's what you do at a wrestling show. Would probably be the answer. Just like, it's not any deeper than that. Personally, chants like that, they do have their place in wrestling. Where I don't want them is AEW. Because WWE tells its main, more important stories outside of the ring. You'll still have stories within the ring, but its most important stuff will be told to you by a microphone or through an action outside of the match itself, and then the match itself is used often to resolve or progress rather than be like the thing. AEW, the matches are the thing. They are the focus. They are the meat of the product. That's where the meaty meat is. So, when they start chanting "We want tables" or something like that in an AEW show, for me, doesn't belong at all. Don't be bringing your WWE shit over to AEW. Keep that over there, where they have told you the matches aren't the most important things. So when you have that reaction, it makes sense. Give us the arbitrary thing. Works in WWE. In AEW, the stories are in the matches, and if you start chanting "We want tables" there, that means that is so much more damning. That means you are not paying attention to the story. At WWE, if you're not paying attention to the match, not the end of the world. It's not the biggest focus. Even though there's a much bigger focus, it's not the end of the world if you start zoning out during a match. On this Queen and King of the Ring stuff, there's like matches where they're not reacting to stuff that would definitely get a reaction in AEW. That said, don't be bringing chants which say to me that you're not paying attention to the match or the story that's being told in the ring at an AEW show. Because that is where the core of their stories will be taking place. And if you're saying, no, I'm not paying attention to this, I want this arbitrary thing. You're like, no, don't be bringing that shit over here. WWE, though, it's fine. Whatever. That is the conditioning that the product has given you as a viewer. For me, it's not, that's what you do at a wrestling show. That's what you do at a WWE show. Because that's what WWE conditioned the fans and the viewers to do. The same with the what thing or whatever. Like, they lent into it. They conditioned that to be a response. There's other responses as well. They're the two that kind of get on me when they appear specifically in AEW. Because they do not belong in that product. The reason they exist, it doesn't belong. The reason you chant it doesn't belong in an AEW environment. Does belong in a WWE environment. That was a bit of a tangent, but I wanted to get to that bit. Hurt leg Baszler moonsaulted into a second outbreak, set to return for our back and forth ending. A lovely overhead shot of Io's moonsault getting countered with the knees, but Io impressively landing on her feet. No cuts, just sticking with that high angle shot. And B, they used it again when replaying Io's bridge getting nicely countered into a Karafuda. It's the fact that they used that angle for the main shot for the moonsault and Io lands on her feet and just holding the legs. Completely different depth of the shot just made it feel really impressive. Because if you show it like flat or at an angle, whatever, you kind of get the depth of the moonsault. She flies over. From above, you don't have any of that. So it for some reason just felt really impressive. Then, for the other time, they showed it with more of the ringside camera angle. Then on the replay, they showed it from a high above. It's like, yeah, using it differently. I'm a big fan of that. Double knees into the corner, rushing Baszler into being laid out for the moonsault and the Io Sky win. But who will her opponent be? Who will be the opponent for the Raw Queen of the Ring bracket side of the Queen of the Ring? Zoe Stark versus Lyra Valkyria. I will say, this week, didn't write Tyra Valkyrie. I did not write Tyra Valkyrie. I wrote Lyra Valkyria first. However, that was because I knew it was coming, and I concentrated really hard. And I thought Tyra Valkyrie first, and I very carefully went, no, Lyra Valkyria, and then I wrote it down, nailed it. Didn't write down the other one by accident. That's because I had to concentrate so hard. It's just, that's never gonna be easy for me. Lyra Valkyria in a much better position on the card/show after last week's advertisement overlaid These Acts Don't Matter death spot that she got. Coming back from commercial with Stark nailing her springboard dropkick ain't a bad way to snap you back into the action either. Just a much better focus overall, really. And this is the match where I was saying that, like, it was a spot where the fans gave it nothing. An exploder suplex, spinning Lyra overhead to little reaction. Like, yep, I'm definitely watching WWE. Here with Lyra Valkyria, they were told last week that she didn't matter. So when it comes this week, she has some momentum. Her association with Becky helps. But she's not got a load of momentum because, like, the show itself told you last week, like, through the language of, like, show structure and everything and the way you present a thing then informs you how you should react to it. They told you that Lyra Valkyria wasn't important. So, lo and behold, here, doesn't get a huge reaction. Gets a nice entrance reaction, but, like, nothing crazy. Then, Zoe Stark hits that awesome explosive suplex, spinning Lyra over to her head. And it gets a smattering of a reaction. It's like, in AEW, that would got one hell of a reaction. Because they're paying attention to the match or whatever, the story's being told there. Here, they're like, oh, okay, whatever. They reacted to them slapping each other's faces, though. The simpletons. Z360 leg caught and lifted up onto Irish shoulders for the Nightwing. Speaking a little Gaelic in her victory interview as well, to utter amusement from the live crowd. Like, yeah, Scotland and Ireland have their own languages. Oh, isn't that amazing? Oh, don't get me started on Celtic. Oh, there's so much here. I went to an Irish pub in Rome, Italia once, and the patrons were speaking Gaelic. That was the moment I realised, whatever level of Irish I am, it certainly isn't that. Turns out there is such a thing as too Irish, because that place was too Irish for me. My granddad immigrated from Ireland. As for the men's King of the Ring, their side of the Raw brackets, Gunther versus Kofi Kingston. Yes, mate. I obviously love this. Also, a nice little thing with Lillian Garcia giving Samantha Irving her props as she guest announces this match. Just nice to see this a vibe of current people being fans of the people from the past and people from the past being fans of the current people, like, it just elevates everybody, makes it feel like you're watching a really nice environment that you just want to be a part of. Which, to be fair, like, that's all of the production for the European shows, all the broad shows with Puerto Rico as well. It's all about creating that environment that you want to be a part of. Kofi arriving with a tactic to immediately take it to the Austrian, and oof, as Kofi Senton flew him into landing seated onto poor Gunther's chest. Like, oh dear, like properly seated. No fear, the ad break lead-in ended up being the visual of Gunther locking in that Boston Crab on the announce desk. Poor Kofi. The crowd so behind Kofi as things went on. A quick mighty dropkick to the back will sort that out. The match really given time to give Kingston his moments. But in the end, a missed Trouble in Paradise after Gunther just beat the count to get back into the ring, swung Kofi into a quick powerbomb. Kofi kicking out, but my God, the swift transition into the Boston Crab torched the win. so it's both swift and devastating looking. The way that Gunther just transitioned and snapped into that Boston Crab with some torque. Really, really good stuff. The other men's one was the main event, Jey Uso versus Ilya Dragunov. 3 weeks in and Ilya is main eventing. Sorry, Floyd, learn to love. A yeetful main event as Jey seemingly just grows and grows in his single-star popularity. They put plenty of effort to try and get the view behind Ilya, but Uso is simply way too over. H-bomb delivered, but Jey's damage to the man's wrist resulted in a nothing cover. The Mad Dragon charging up in the corner, met by a spear and a follow-up splash for the win. 2-star Jey Uso delivers again. But the crowd got crazy for everything he does. It's like, you're watching 2-star Jey Uso, but you're watching him in front of a crowd that reacts to every single move and gesture that he makes. He's got that crowd in the palm of his hand. They are glued to him and they are reacting to everything he does. They're having a ball of a time reacting to everything that Jey Uso is doing. It's not just the yeet, it's everything that he does. That's what it feels like. There's two sides of Jey Uso. The actual match quality, 2-star Jey Uso. He strikes again, baby. However, the fan reaction and engagement of him at the moment, 5 stars. The ways that crowds are reacting to him is at an absolutely sublime level. And I feel like that's, when it comes to WWE, that side's more important. And that ties in really nicely to what I was talking about earlier, where in WWE, the actual in-match quality, like, it doesn't really matter, like, cool, whatever. But when it comes to AEW, the in-ring really matters. Like, yeah, in AEW, Jey Uso, the crowd probably have a bit of an issue, whatever. WWE, because that's not the part that's as important. Like, Jey Uso brings the spectacle. And it was bewildering almost to watch him versus Damian Priest, where Priest gets a reaction. But Jey Uso's like out of this world. Like, what do you mean Jey Uso's the one that's not the champion? Like, when you watch that, the man has just like found a way to only do 3 moves, yet every single delivery gets a big reaction. For next week, King of the Ring semi-final, Jey Uso versus Gunther. As we get to see that rematch. Just some other quick notes before I sign off. Buddy Carlitos shaved his moustache, and now he's just chin fluff. Priest rightfully not accepting him into the group. I mean, I assume that was the reason. Like, I wasn't really listening. I'm just like, no, absolutely not. That facial hair is egregious. Like, what? You are not in an early 2000s rock band. do not come at me with that facial hair. We got some big teasers for a future Gunther Dragunov meeting as well, so nom. Irish Judgment also becoming number 1 contenders for the tag belts, or do I call them Green Day? Not thought about that. Tozawa losing to Bronson Reed. Otis nicely bubbling that future big pop when he finally stands up to abusive coach Gable. All the character work there is bubbling really nicely. Karen Cross stepping to Kofi Kingston backstage as the 2 men that will never win King of the Ring. Adam Pearce talking to Jackie Redmond about Braun, and I genuinely didn't realise he wasn't talking about Strowman until Breakker walked in. I was like, yes, that's going to be an issue going forward. I thought they were generally talking about why isn't the former world champion Braun Strowman in the King of the Ring. Then Von Breakker walked in and was like, oh no, they mean first round draft pick. Yeah, they did say those words, I just wasn't listening because I just assumed they meant Strowman. Delete notes. Made me laugh. So, future Braun tag team coming your way. Women's World Champion Becky Lynch also faced Damage Control's Dakota Kai, continuing to build up their presence for the future, alongside the Liv Morgan Challenger focus as well. All of that, I feel like it's bubbling perfectly nicely as well. King and Queen of the Ring PLEs, no, I don't like it. I don't like it, only Stooges say PLE. But yeah, with that, I'm moving to the end of the review. I didn't really give a overall feeling of SmackDown or Raw as I was going through those. It's like, yeah, King of the Ring stuff happened and bubbling and building to that stuff. So the shows themselves, there's not a lot to say. I guess that's one downside of doing a tournament across the show. When the focus is this strong and the shows are the tournament, but your tournament matches are all building, obviously. Like next week with the semi-finals, that feels like what we've been building to is finally going to be reached. You see, it's different in AEW where the tournament matches will have like really high quality wrestling like every single time. So you know, make sure they deliver bangers as well as building up the elevation to get you excited to see the final. In WWE, it's the characters that are kind of the focus, and you want to see the certain characters clash and whatever. So it's not quite the same. It just means when you're watching the shows that like, I've not got a lot of notes really. Like it's fine. It's absolutely fine. So yeah, 2 shows that felt absolutely fine, but they are both building the tournaments. And we are going to be doing the semi-finals next week, so yay, excitement, hooray. With SmackDown, we'll have the quarterfinals ones for next week, and then Raw, the semi-finals will start. We'll have the King and Queen of the Ring coming up. Is it that weekend or is it the week after? I don't know if we've got another week for the finalists to have their chin wag. I suspect we will. I don't think we're going to go straight from SmackDown. Actually, no, that's a good point, is because of the travel to Saudi Arabia, there will likely be one more week. As I figure it out in my head. There'll likely be one more week, figure all that out, and then you fly over to Saudi Arabia. We've also got Double or Nothing coming up. Very much looking forward to that. Good time to be a wrestling fan. Anyway, with that I say thank you for listening, liking, engaging in any form, any manner. Always appreciated, never taken for granted. Oh yeah, subscribe to the Kiss Boys Patreon. I was meant to add that to my plugs. I forgot. I'm not going to re-record it. Sod it. Sod it. The only people that will hear the plug are the ones that made it all the way to the end. So if you sign up for the Kiss Boys Patreon and you do it with a referral saying that, it's because Imp did it at the end of the show, that means that I know you listened all the way to here. Specifically to the end of my show. Anyway, I'll be back next week to talk more about the Kings. More about King and the Queen of the Ring. Yeah, more of it. It's not going away. It's not going away. So that's a bid you adieu. Adios.
Primary Election Day is Tuesday, June 4th. Now is the time to make a plan. Whether you plan to vote absentee by mail, in person at your county auditor's office before Election Day, or at your polling place on June 4th, it's important you take steps now to make your plan at voterready.iowa.gov. Remember, Election Day is Tuesday, June 4th. Find more info at voterready.iowa.gov. This message is presented by the Iowa Secretary of State.